Why would a husband hand his wife divorce papers only hours after a fun lunch date? What makes a man stay calm while his wife flirts with a waiter in public, then answer her with documents instead of shouting? This story follows the day I thought I still had the power, and the moment I realized all that quiet was preparation. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Undine, and I still think my husband should feel lucky he even has me. That sounds harsh, I know, but it is true in my head. I take care of myself, I look good for my age, and men still stare when I walk into a room. In my mind, that means I have options. Evan does not. That is just reality. That morning started like many others. The kitchen was bright, but the air felt heavy. Evan stood by the coffee machine, already dressed for work, checking something on his phone. I came in wearing my robe, tying it a bit loose on purpose. He looked up once, then back down. That annoyed me more than it should. He asked if I had checked the credit card bill because he had seen a hotel charge from last month. I said he must be mixing it up with one of his work bookings. He frowned and said the booking was under my name and was on a night I said I had to stay late at the office. I laughed and told him the company sometimes put things under my name, that he was being dramatic, and that he always thought the worst. Inside, I felt a little pinch of fear, but I pushed it down. He did not raise his voice. He never does. He just asked if there was anything I wanted to tell him. I said I was tired of being treated like a suspect instead of a wife. I told him other men would be happy to have a woman like me working late, making money, keeping things exciting. I watched his face when I said that. I wanted it to hurt a little. He put his phone down and said he just wanted honesty. I rolled my eyes and told him honesty did not mean I had to give a full report of every moment of my day. He went quiet after that, took his mug, and walked over to the tiny desk in the corner of our living room. While I did my makeup, I saw him open his laptop. On the screen, there was a spreadsheet with neat rows and dates, little notes in a column. It looked boring, like everything he did. Numbers, lines, order. He typed something, then checked his phone calendar. I saw a reminder pop up on the lock screen. Meeting, personal. I made a small joke about him dating his planner more than his wife. He did not laugh. He just turned the screen a little so I could not see. I told myself he was being childish. I told myself that if he did not want to lose me, he should act more fun, more alive. I never let my thoughts stay long on that hotel room with Ryan. The way I had walked in, telling myself it was just a one-time thing. I refused to see that one night as real cheating. I always call it a mistake, not an affair. That is how I keep going. At the office, things felt different. People moved around our open-plan space with coffee cups and bright voices. Ryan walked past my desk and brushed his hand lightly against the back of my chair. He asked if I had survived the jealous husband interrogation after our last team dinner. I smirked and said that my husband was suspicious, that he saw danger in every man who smiled at me. Ryan said Evan could not handle having a hot wife. I liked the way that sounded. When I checked my phone, Evan had sent a message asking what time I would be home and if we could have a calm talk about trust tonight. I left it on read for a while. I liked knowing he waited for my answer. I told Ryan about the hotel charge question, but I changed the details. I said Evan had all but called me a liar, and that he liked to control the money to keep me small. Ryan shook his head and said that sounded exhausting. He suggested I deserved better than constant suspicion. In my head, this was proof. Men at work saw my value. My husband only saw risk. I replied to Evan hours later, saying I would be late because the team had a lot to finish and that we would talk another time. I made it sound like he was the one pressing too hard. After work, there was a quiet moment in the parking garage. The air echoed with distant cars and our footsteps. Ryan leaned against a pillar and asked if I was okay. I said I was done letting Evan act like my father. I told Ryan that maybe I needed space to remember who I was before I got married. I watched his eyes when I said that. I wanted him to see me as a woman in demand, not as somebody's wife. When I got in my car, I saw one more message from Evan. He said he would be at my mother's that evening and asked if I was still coming to dinner. I had almost forgotten. My mother Sylvia loved these dinners. She also loved to complain about men, and I knew she would take my side. At Sylvia's small house that night, the table was crowded with dishes. My sister Tara sat with her phone in her hand, always ready for gossip. Mia was in the living room, half watching cartoons, half listening to grown-up words. Evan sat near the end of the table, shoulders straight, face quiet. He looked like he did not belong. Sylvia asked why Evan looked so serious. I jumped in before he could answer. I said he had been checking my card like I was his teenage daughter and accusing me over a random hotel payment. Tara snorted and said that sounded like a control freak. My mother agreed and said some men were so insecure they could not handle a wife who had a life. Evan tried to explain that the charge was on a night I said I was at the office and that it was under my name. I cut him off. I told everyone he was paranoid and that no normal man would think his wife was in a hotel with some other guy just because of one line on a bill. I added that he hated my male co-workers and made it hard for me to network. It was not true, but it felt good to see their faces twist in his direction. Tara raised her eyebrows at him and said, maybe he should trust me more. My mother said if he did not like being married to a desirable woman, he should go find some dull person who never looked at another man. The jokes came easy after that. They teased him about needing to man up or get out of my way. I sat there and let them. I told myself he deserved it for making me feel guilty. He did not fight back. He just watched me with a strange, tired look. When he put his fork down, I saw the small shake in his hand, and I felt a tiny stab of something like shame. I buried it quickly. I told myself he could fix all of this by simply relaxing and not looking at bills so closely. Later, when Mia wandered in and climbed onto my lap, she asked why Daddy did not smile anymore. I told her Daddy was just stressed from work and that Mommy was the fun one. I said it in a light voice, but Evan heard. He stood up, thanked my mother for dinner, and said he would take Mia home for bedtime. My mother said he could at least pretend to be grateful for a good meal. When we got back, Evan went straight to the little desk. His laptop screen glowed in the dark living room. I passed behind him on my way to the bedroom and saw that spreadsheet again, now longer. Rows of dates, words I could not catch, one column with small notes. A phone alarm icon flashed on his screen with the label, meeting, personal set for next week. I rolled my eyes and asked if he was scheduling time to accuse me again. He answered, without looking up, that he was just organizing things and that he needed some clarity. His voice was so calm, it bothered me even more than anger would have. I went to bed thinking he was being dramatic, that he would cool down as always, that he would never dare really leave. I still thought I had all the power. The Saturday after that dinner, I woke up feeling light. Evan had already taken Mia to the park with his mother, Joy. He left a note on the counter, saying he thought it would be good for Mia to have some calm time. I read the note and rolled my eyes. He always tried to look like the responsible one. I had brunch plans with my friends at this trendy cafe downtown, the kind of place with plants everywhere, and loud music, and people taking pictures of their food. I wore a tight dress and red lipstick. I wanted to remind myself that I was still young, still wanted. When I looked in the mirror, I thought Evan should be grateful. There were women my age who had already let themselves go. I was not one of them. At the cafe, my friends waved me over. As soon as I sat down, one of them asked why I was alone. I said Evan refused to come because he did not like my friends, and got jealous when men looked at me. They asked if he was still checking receipts. I laughed and told them about the hotel charge, but I told the story my way. I said he had basically accused me of cheating over a simple mistake on a bill. I said he stared at the statement like a detective and acted like I was on trial. They made shocked faces and said that was toxic. One friend said her boyfriend never even looked at the bills. Another said a husband who checked every line like that did not trust his wife. I nodded and told them it felt like living with a hall monitor. I left out the part where I had actually gone to that hotel with Ryan. That detail was not helpful for my side. While we ate, one friend opened our group chat on her phone and showed a message from Ryan from last night. He had written that he hoped I was okay and that he did not want to cause problems at home. There was a winking emoji. My friend said a man did not send messages like that unless he was into me. I shrugged and said Ryan was harmless, that it was just friendly. But inside, I liked it. I liked the story that there were men out there waiting in line if Evan walked away. They asked if Evan knew how flirty Ryan could be. I said Evan hated him for no reason, that he could not handle male attention near me. I made Evan sound like some old bitter guy, not like the man who had quietly held my hair when I was sick last year. My friends shook their heads and joked that Evan sounded like a jealous dad, not a husband. I laughed along. It felt good to hear people say I was right. When we took pictures for social media, one friend suggested a caption about being too much woman for small men. She said it as a joke, but I liked it. I posted a selfie with them and a short line about brunch with people who actually get me. I wanted Evan to see it later. I wanted him to feel like there was a world where he did not belong. During a pause, my phone buzzed with a voice note from Evan. I did not listen right away. I saw the first line of text. He hoped we could have a calm talk about things, that he did not want fights, only clarity. I put the phone face down and went back to my food. My friend asked if that was him, and I said he was probably complaining that I left the house without giving him my full schedule. After brunch, on the way to the car, I finally listened to the voice note. His tone was soft. He said he felt like we were living in the same place but not in the same life. He said he needed to understand what I wanted and that he was ready to make hard choices if we could not fix things. I hated that last sentence. It sounded like he was the one with power, not me. I called my mother on the way home and told her he had threatened hard choices. She gasped and said that men always played the victim right before they did something selfish. I agreed and said he was talking about money and trust like he owned everything. She told me not to cry or beg if he tried any stunt, but to show him that I could walk away too. She reminded me that I was her daughter, not some weak little wife. When I got home, Evan was sitting on the couch with Mia asleep on his chest, a kids' show on mute. Joy sat in the armchair, knitting, looking calm. She smiled when she saw me and asked if I had a nice time. I said it was good to be with people who did not treat me like a suspect. She looked at her son for a second, then said she hoped we were both being fair to each other. Her voice was gentle but firm. I brushed it off. After Joy left and Mia was in her room, Evan asked if we could talk. I said I was tired and that brunch had been long. He reminded me softly that he had been asking for this talk for days. I sighed and said fine. We sat at the small dining table. He had a notepad in front of him. That annoyed me right away. He said he wanted to be clear so nothing got twisted. I told him only controlling people took notes in their own home. He stayed calm. He said there were things that did not make sense. The hotel charge, the late nights, the way I told stories about him to other people. He said he did not recognize the version of him I gave to my family and friends. I said if he was upset about what I shared at my mother's, that was on him for making me feel alone. I said I should be able to vent to my own family. He replied that it felt less like venting and more like building a case against him. The word case made me look at his notebook again. Lines, dates, small bullet points. I told him if he thought he was some lawyer now, he was ridiculous. He said he was trying to protect himself and Mia because he felt like I was already halfway out the door in my mind. I laughed and said he was being dramatic and that men would line up if I ever really left. I said maybe it was good for him to know that, so he would appreciate what he had. He did not shout, he just went quiet, and that silence made me more angry than any insult. I told him maybe we both needed space, and that I was done talking for the night. He nodded once, closed his notebook, and went to the small desk in the corner. Later, when he went to take a shower, I walked past his open laptop. A calendar window was still on the screen. I saw several recurring blocks titled Meeting, Personal. Some were marked in the past months, some in the next weeks. My stomach did a small flip. Why so many? With who? Before I could look closer, his phone on the table lit up. A missed call. No caller ID. Under it, a new contact name appeared in the log, just a small emoji. I stared at it for a second. He walked back into the room, took the phone and flipped it over. I asked who that was. He said it was nothing I had to worry about and that he was just making sure he understood his options. I made a joke that he was planning a secret life. He said very calmly that he was planning a safe life. Then he picked up a pillow and a blanket and walked to the guest room door. The soft click of the lock felt louder than any slam. I told myself he was bluffing, that he would never really go through with anything. But as I lay in our bed alone, I kept thinking about that little scale emoji and the clean rows of dates in his notebook. On Monday, I walked into the office like nothing was wrong. I wore a fitted blouse and heels that clicked on the floor. I reminded myself I was still the main character of my life, not some side note in Evan's little notebook. If he wanted to sulk in the guest room and talk to mystery contacts with tiny scale symbols, that was his strange hobby. I would keep living. At my desk, I opened my email and tried to focus on a campaign brief. My mind kept drifting back to that calendar with all the personal meetings. It made me uneasy, but I told myself he was overreacting and would calm down. He always did. Ryan stopped by my desk with his coffee. He asked how my weekend drama had gone and if my detective husband had relaxed. I rolled my eyes and told him Evan was still in full investigation mode, with notes and dates and maybe even folders. I said he made everything feel like a crime scene, even our kitchen. Ryan looked less amused than normal. He said he had a strange feeling about the whole situation and that he did not want trouble at work. He reminded me that we had crossed a line before and that people sometimes talk more than we think. I felt a small sting when he said that. He was not talking like my fun escape anymore. He was talking like someone who wanted distance. I told him Evan was just insecure and that he needed to accept that other men found me attractive. I said no one at work cared what we did, that everyone had their own life. Ryan looked at me for a long second. He said gently that security cameras in the parking garage and hotel bills cared a lot, and that husbands with notebooks usually did not just let things go. I snapped back that Evan would never do anything big, that he was all notes and no action. Ryan sighed and said he did not want to be pulled into any mess. He told me he needed some space, and that if I had things to sort at home, I should do that without dragging him in. His words felt like a slap. Here I was, trying to feel powerful, and both my husband and my affair partner were suddenly acting like I was a problem. Later that day, I got a message from Evan. He wrote that he needed to know what evenings I would actually be home over the next 2 weeks, because he was planning around work and other appointments. He said he wanted some predictability for Mia and for the household. The tone was polite, almost formal. It annoyed me more than if he had yelled. I replied that my schedule changed all the time, and that he should stop trying to manage me like a project. I added that if he wanted predictability, he should have married someone else. He did not argue. He just wrote that he would make his own plans based on what he knew, and that I could inform him if anything shifted. The words sounded like something from an email at work, not from my husband. That evening, when I got home, the apartment felt different. Evan had cleared a corner of the living room and set up a small folding table next to his regular desk. On one side, there was the laptop. On the other, a neat stack of envelopes, a small printer, and a box with coloured sticky notes. It looked like a mini office. I asked if he was starting a side business. He said he was just organising the household and some personal matters. I laughed and said he was turning into a middle-aged man before my eyes. He did not respond. He just clicked the mouse, and I saw a file window open with a folder named Household. Inside it were more folders, their names short and clean. In the next column, there were two main folders called Archive A and Archive B. I joked that I should feel special to be part of an archive. He said calmly that he needed clear records, that they helped him think straight. I told him this was creepy and that normal husbands did not keep archives on their wives. He answered that normal wives did not hide hotel stays and flirt with co-workers like they were single. The way he said it, flat and steady, made my cheeks burn. Before I could fire back, there was a knock on the door. It was Joy holding a bag of groceries. She said she had picked up some things for Mia and thought she would drop by. I saw Evan relax a little when his mother walked in. Mia came running out of her room, happy to see her grandmother. Joy asked if everything was okay between us. I said we were just having a normal rough patch, that it was nothing serious. She looked at Evan. He said we had some things to sort out, but he was focused on making sure Mia was okay. Joy sat down with Mia and began reading a book, but her eyes kept returning to the corner with the laptop and stacks of paper. I pulled her aside in the kitchen later and told her Evan was getting strange. I said he was hiding his phone, taking personal calls, and building secret folders. I suggested maybe he was planning to leave us, and that he was playing the victim. Joy listened quietly. Then she surprised me. She said if he was trying to understand his position and protect himself, maybe he felt very hurt and very alone. She added that she hoped both of us were telling the full truth before making big moves. I did not like that answer. I told her I had a right to talk to my friends and that Evan was the one making everything bigger than it had to be. She did not argue. She only said she loved her son and her granddaughter, and she hoped we would not use Mia as a tool in our fights. Later, I took Mia to the park for some air. We sat on a bench near the playground. She played for a while, then climbed onto my lap. She asked why Daddy slept in the other room now. I hated that question. I told her Daddy was just stressed and needed quiet, but that Mommy was the fun one and took her to playgrounds. I said Daddy liked numbers and plans more than games. I knew she would remember that line. When we came back, Evan was again by his little setup. The printer gave off a faint toner smell. I watched a sheet come out, but when I glanced down, it was blank. He pulled it out, checked the printer display, and tossed the paper in a box under the table. It looked like a test. Everything with him now felt like a test. He asked how the park was. I said it was nice, that Mia loved being outside with me, that she needed joy after all this tension. I emphasized the word joy, like a little dig at his mother. He just nodded and wrote something on a sticky note that he placed on one of the envelopes. He went to the bedroom for a moment. I took the chance to sit at his desk chair. The screen was still on. A notification bubble slid into the corner. Cloud sync complete, file uploaded successfully. My eyes went to a list of recent items. The names were simple, like they were made to hide in plain sight. I could not open them without his password, but my heart sped up anyway. I opened the top drawer, half expecting to find nothing. Instead, I saw a smooth row of folders. One tab read Taxes. Underneath that folder, taped lightly to the wood, was a small USB stick with a date written on it in his clear, straight handwriting. I stared at it. The date matched the week of that hotel stay. I heard the floor creak. I shut the drawer fast. When he came back, he looked at me sitting there but said nothing. He only reached over me to tap a key and lock the screen. The soft click of his new desk drawer lock followed. He had added a tiny keyhole I had not seen before. I walked back to the couch, pretending I was not bothered, but my mind spun. I told myself he was being obsessive, that I was the one being wronged by all this tracking. I said inside my head that if he pushed me too far, I would just leave and prove I did not need him. Still, as I watched Mia color on the floor and saw Evan move calmly between the laptop, the envelopes, and his phone, a nervous feeling settled in my chest. It did not match the story I like to tell, where I was always in control. The next big crack started on a Thursday night in our bedroom. I was sitting on the bed, scrolling on my phone, still thinking about that little USB in his drawer and the new lock. Evan stood near the dresser, folding a shirt with slow, careful movements. He looked like he was getting ready for a trip, even though he wasn't going anywhere. He said he had been thinking a lot and that he wanted us to try couples therapy. He said we needed a neutral place to talk about trust and respect. I stared at him like he had suggested we move to another planet. I asked if he was saying I was broken or crazy. He said no, that he was saying we both needed help, but all I heard was him calling me the problem. I told him therapy was for people who had real issues, not for a wife who just wanted some attention. I said he was the one obsessed with bills and notes and evidence. He said calmly that when a person lies about where they are, that is a real issue. He added that his goal was to protect our marriage if possible, and himself and Mia if not. That last part stuck in my throat. I turned it on him. I said he was threatening me with our own daughter, that he was trying to scare me into obedience. I told him any man who used custody words in a fight was disgusting. He took a breath and said he did not want to fight, that he just could not live in a fog anymore. He suggested we at least try one session. I laughed and said I had no interest in paying a stranger to tell me how wrong I was. He went quiet again, that deep, calm quiet that made me want to scream. He picked up his phone from the nightstand and typed something. I saw a new calendar block appear. Meeting. Personal. Early the next morning. It made my stomach twist, but I acted like I did not care. I told him if he needed someone to tell him he was right, he could go talk to his mother. The next day at the supermarket, the fight changed shape. We were in the checkout line, the cart full of random things I had tossed in without thinking. Mia was at school, so it was just us. He held the card in his hand, looking at the total on the screen, then at the list on his phone. He said gently that our spending had gone up a lot in the last months. He pointed out the ride shares, the work dinners, the clothes. He said we needed a clearer budget. I rolled my eyes and said he sounded like a banker, not a husband. I told him I worked too, and that I had a right to shop without being cross-examined. He said it wasn't about control, it was about planning, especially if things changed between us. There it was again, that hidden threat. He said he was going to move part of the savings into a separate account in his name, just so at least something was stable if everything else fell apart. He said it calmly, like he was reading a weather report. I acted shocked, like he had slapped me. I said he was stealing from me, preparing to abandon me and Mia. I raised my voice just enough so the cashier could hear. The cashier kept her face blank, but her eyes flicked between us. Evan did not react. He simply said we would still both have access to what we needed now, that this was about future security. I told him I hoped he enjoyed being alone with his future security when I was gone. He did not bite. He just paid, took the bags, and walked toward the doors. In the car, I called my mother on speaker and told her what happened. I said Evan was moving money behind my back and talking like a lawyer. My mother gasped and said that was what men did before they walked out. She told me to start my own secret savings too, and to keep an eye on any documents. I agreed loudly, while Evan drove in silence. I wanted him to hear every word. Later that afternoon, we took Mia to the playground. She ran between the swings and the slide, her hair flying behind her. Evan pushed her a few times, then stepped back to sit on a bench, his shoulders tight. I sat on the next bench with my phone, half watching. At some point, Mia got tired and climbed onto my lap. She rested her head on my chest and stared at the clouds. She asked why Daddy slept on the couch so much now. I felt a jolt. I said Daddy liked space, that he was the kind of person who liked distance more than hugs. I smiled when I said it, so it sounded like a little joke, but I knew the idea would plant itself in her head. Mia looked over at Evan, who was staring at his hands. She said softly that she liked hugs better. I hugged her tighter and told her that Mommy was the fun one and always would be. When we got home, the air in the apartment felt sharp. Evan went straight to his corner. The small printer hummed, spitting out a short stack of pages. He picked them up, checked them, then slid them into one of the envelopes from the other night. A sticky note on the table read, "Bring forms." He placed it on his phone screen, as if he did not want to forget. I leaned on the kitchen counter and watched him. I told him straight out that if he was going to leave, he should just say so instead of playing games. He looked at me with tired eyes and said he had been saying for weeks that we needed to decide what we wanted. He said I was the one acting like nothing counted, like every lie and every flirt was just normal. I told him I would stop lying if he stopped asking questions. I heard how childish it sounded, but I said it anyway. Then I switched tactics. I said he was destroying our home by talking about money and custody and forms. I said Mia would grow up thinking her father cared more about bank accounts than about her mother. He shook his head and said Mia would grow up knowing at least one adult in her life kept things stable. I could not stand that calm tone. I told him maybe the problem was that he never fought for me. I said if he really loved me, he would scream, throw something, grab me and beg me not to leave. I said his silence felt like he did not care. He answered that love did not have to look like chaos, and that if I needed drama to feel wanted, then we did not want the same kind of life. That made me angrier than if he had shouted. Later that night, I called my sister Tara. I told her Evan was planning money moves and talking like a judge. She laughed and said I should give him something to actually be jealous about. She said maybe then he would show if he still cared. She suggested I flirt openly with someone in front of him, somewhere public, to see if he finally reacted. The idea lit something inside me. A test. A show. A way to prove he was the problem. When I hung up, Evan came into the bedroom and said we still had that lunch reservation at a new bistro downtown this weekend. It was supposed to be a date we had booked weeks ago. He said he thought we should still go, that maybe talking in a neutral place would help. I saw the chance right away. I nodded and said sure, that it might be good for us. As he turned away, his phone lit up on the dresser. I saw a new calendar reminder slide across the top, downtown, 3:30 p.m., personal. He picked up the phone, checked something, and then slipped it into his pocket. He told me he wanted that lunch to be honest. I smiled and told him it would be. In my head, I was already choosing a dress tight enough to make every eye in the room turn toward me. Saturday came with clear sky and the kind of soft light that makes everything look better than it is. I took that as a sign. I woke up before Evan for once and stood in front of the closet, pulling dresses out one by one. I wanted something that hugged my waist, that made my legs look long. This was not just lunch. This was my test, my stage. When Evan got up, he asked if I remembered the reservation time. I said of course, like I was doing him a favor by even going. He said quietly that he hoped we could talk honestly there, without interruptions. I said honesty went both ways, and that I was tired of being treated like a suspect. In my head, I was already picturing the waiter. He spent the morning moving between the kitchen and his corner. The small printer buzzed. The locked drawer clicked open and shut. I saw him slide a note into his wallet and set a phone alarm with the name Paper Drop. I made a joke that he was dating his stationery now. He didn't answer. His calm was getting old. I dressed in a short black dress and heels, nothing too wild but enough to draw looks. I curled my hair and put on red lipstick. When I stepped into the living room, Evan paused. For a second, I thought he might compliment me, reach out, do something. Instead, he just said, I looked ready for lunch, and picked up his keys. The lack of reaction annoyed me more than any comment would have. Mia was staying with Joy for the afternoon. As we dropped her off, Joy hugged her son a bit longer than usual and then looked at me. She said she hoped we could find a way to talk without hurting each other. I said we were just going to lunch, nothing dramatic. She gave Evan a look like they had already spoken about more than that. I didn't like feeling outside of that circle. The bistro was one of those trendy places with exposed brick, big windows, and plants hanging from the ceiling. Tables were close enough that you could hear other people's conversations if you tried, perfect for an audience. The host led us to a small table near the center of the room. I liked that. We would be visible from many angles. As soon as we sat down, I scanned the staff. Then I saw him, the waiter from my last visit with friends. Marco. Tall, dark hair pulled back, easy smile. He walked over with menus and recognized me. He said he remembered my group and our loud laughter. I laughed again and said we were unforgettable. I watched Evan's jaw tighten just a little. Marco asked what we wanted to drink. I leaned my elbow on the table, tilted my head, and asked what he recommended for a woman who needs something strong. He smiled like it was part of the job and suggested a cocktail. I held his eye a bit too long when I agreed. He wrote it down, then turned to Evan. My husband asked for a simple beer. Even his order sounded boring next to mine. When Marco left, Evan said quietly that he hoped we could focus on us today, not on making a show. I pretended not to understand. I said I was just being friendly and that he always twisted normal charm into something dark. He said flirting with the waiter was not normal charm when your marriage was already on the edge. I smiled and said if our marriage was strong, a waiter smile would not scare him. It felt good to flip it like that. A few minutes later, my sister Tara appeared near the door, acting surprised to see us. She walked over with a big grin and said she had no idea we were here, that she was meeting a friend for a drink. I knew that was a lie. I had texted her the time and place that morning, but the performance was important. She asked if we minded if she sat for a minute. I glanced at Evan, without really giving him a choice, and said, of course. Marco came back with the drinks. Tara's eyes went wide as she took him in. She gave me a look that said, "This is the guy?" I smiled into my glass. When Marco asked if we were ready to order, I asked him what his favorite dish was. I leaned forward a little, fingers brushing his hand when he passed me the menu. He pulled back, just half a second too late. I saw the awareness in his eyes. Tara slid her phone onto the table, camera on, screen dark but recording. She was good at making it look casual. She asked Marco if he was single in a joking tone. I added that he looked dangerous in a good way. People at the next table glanced over. Evan sat still, his face closed. He didn't say a word. When Marco left again, Evan said in a low voice that this was disrespectful. He said he felt humiliated sitting there while his wife and sister made a show out of some waiter. I said no one was humiliating him. I was just having fun. I told him if he felt small because another man smiled at me, that was his insecurity, not my behavior. I reminded him, loudly enough for Tara to hear, that men still wanted me. That line hung in the air. Food came, and I kept the game going. I asked Marco to taste a sauce with me by holding the plate closer. I joked that he should come sit with us when his shift ended. He laughed politely, but I could see him getting more careful. This was not normal for him either. Evan chewed slowly, barely looking up. At one point, Marco brought the bill. I took the pen before Evan could, flipped the receipt over, and wrote my Instagram handle with a small heart next to it. I told Marco he could follow if he wanted to see more chaos. He laughed, flushed a bit, and said he might. Evan watched my hand move across the paper. His knuckles were white around his glass. Tara whispered that this would make a great story later. She said plenty of women would kill for this much attention. I agreed loudly, adding that some husbands didn't realize how rare it was to have a wife other men still checked out. I saw a woman at the next table give me a sharp look. She did not seem impressed. I chose to ignore that. When we stood up to leave, Tara asked Evan if he was okay. He said he was fine. His voice was even. That bothered me. I had expected some kind of outburst, something I could use later. Instead, he paid the bill, thanked Marco in a tone so controlled it almost scared me, and walked toward the door. I followed, my heels tapping on the floor, Tara behind us with her secret video. Outside on the sidewalk, the city noise felt louder. Cars, people, weekend energy. Tara lit a cigarette and joked that she hadn't seen that much tension without someone flipping a table. I laughed and said Evan was too afraid to react. I said in front of him that if he didn't want his wife to be noticed, he should have married someone invisible. He turned to me then, eyes clear, face calm. He said he heard every word, every joke, every touch of my hand on the waiter's arm. He said he understood exactly how I wanted him to look. Weak, jealous, ridiculous. I opened my mouth to throw it back at him, but he kept talking. He said he would not give me the outburst I was trying to create. He said he was finished trying to prove anything in public. Then he said something that made the air feel colder. He told me he would handle everything properly now. Not with scenes, but with actions. He added that I should be ready for someone to meet me at my office later that day in the lobby to drop off some papers. I laughed. I said he was bluffing, that he was trying to scare me with his proper plans. Tara laughed too and said he was being dramatic. Evan just nodded once, turned, and started walking toward the car. His shoulders were straight, his step steady. For the first time, I had the feeling the show I had just put on had not landed the way I thought. It felt like something had shifted, and not in my favor. When I walked into the lobby that afternoon, I felt good. I had changed into a new blouse, fixed my lipstick, and told myself the lunch was just one more story I could laugh about with my friends. The glass walls shone in the sun. People sat on the couches with laptops. The security guard checked badges, the usual noise. Then I saw Evan. He was standing near the center of the lobby with a man in a dark blazer I had never seen before. The man held a slim folder. Evan held Mia's favorite little backpack in one hand and his own eyes steady on me. For a second I thought he had come to beg, to talk, to make another calm speech I could twist later. I walked over with a smile. I asked if he was here to apologize. He said he was here to do something else. His voice was steady, almost too quiet for the room. The man in the blazer turned to me. He said my full name and asked me to confirm it. When I nodded, confused, he placed the envelope in my hand and said this was for me. No drama, no raised voice, just a formal act in front of the security guard, the receptionist, and 2 co-workers who had just stepped out of the elevator. I opened it. The first words hit like a slap. Petition for divorce, temporary custody, and financial orders. Under that, lines about screenshots, hotel invoices, message logs, public posts, patterns of conduct, dates, times, my own words from group chats. I looked up at Evan. I asked what this was. He said it was his answer to everything I had done properly this time. He said all other talks would go through the channels listed in the papers. Then he turned and walked toward the door while I stood there, envelope shaking in my hand, people watching,